Welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking a look at the next couple of issues of Warhammer 40K's Imperium magazine. Today we're taking a look at issues 12 and 13. We've got a little bit of our binder divider included in issue 13. This is how it was packaged for me in my subscription. I don't know if this little divider will be included with issue 13 on the shelf. We have our sprue with issue 13. We have our Imperium brush set, which was the free gift included in the subscription for this package, and then our 3 pots of paint that are included in issue 12. Now I went ahead and put these 2 issues together because issue 12, if you are looking to pick them up off the shelves, if these 3 are three different paint pots that you're specifically looking for, then that's great. You get a deal. Probably get these 3 pots, $13.95. You're paying probably a little bit cheaper than buying the pots individually. But if you are following along with the subscription, this does have a more in-depth paint guide and how to use these paints and where to use them on previous miniatures in the collection. So if you're looking to pick these up off the shelves, issue 12 is a little bit boring. It might not be something that you want to pick up off the shelf unless you specifically need Canoptech Alloy, Agrax Earthshade, and Screamer Pink. If you're not specifically looking for those 3 pots of paint, even though everyone can always use some more Agrax Earthshade, you might be able to skip it. And then moving on to issue 13, we've got our 5 Assault Intercessors. So 5 Assault Intercessors, you can probably get these pretty cheap on eBay now. But if we're going through Games Workshop pricing, you would say half of an Assault Intercessor box would probably be roughly $30, because I believe the Assault Intercessors box is roughly $60. So that's good value there for $14, 5 Assault Intercessors. Now that's going to be a little bit more exciting than a few pots of paint. Now moving on to each of the issues. Issue 12 itself goes over Necron war gear. Inside, once we crack it open, we see war gear options and names, and a random name generator here that you can use a couple dice to name your Necron war gear. Again, these issues are very geared towards beginners, as I've said in all of these videos. So naming war gear, coming up with backstory. People who are more entrenched in the hobby may not be taking the time to do this. Other people that are interested in the hobby might, but I see this as geared towards newer players, newer people joining the hobby, and creating a backstory and naming your weapons and naming your characters and all of that is pretty interesting for newer players and any other older players that might be interested in that. And then some information about Imperium Nihilus. I don't know too much about the most recent lore. Apparently, during the 13th Black Crusade, some giant rift was opened that split the galaxy in half, and then the half of the galaxy, or half of the Imperium that is on the far side of this giant rift, is called Imperium Nihilus, and then the closer side of the Imperium, where Terra is and all of that, I believe is the standard Imperium. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. That's as much as I've gleaned following along from some of these stories. And then the Imperium Nihilus era and some more information, and then chapter planets, which we go further in depth on in our little divider included. But this tells us about different chapter planets, whether they have a home world or whether they're spacefaring, fleet or crusade based, and see fleet based chapters and fortress monasteries. Then a little short story about Chaos Demon Incursion here, introducing us to some demons in Imperium magazine here. Moving forward, a small little introduction to the 4 Chaos Gods with a small snippet of each of them. A good introduction, but small information about each, of course. If you're familiar with Warhammer and you're familiar with the Chaos Gods, there's way more to be said about each of the 4 than one little paragraph or a couple sentences each. Then moving forward, we go into our how to paint section with shades, Agrax Earthshade first, and here we go ahead and shade some rocks, shade the tactical rocks that are under the scarab swarms, how to deal with pooling and what to do So that's pretty interesting. And then further, how to paint for other miniatures that we received in the collection and where to use. Agrax Earthshade, Screamer Pink. We got a layer of paint, Canoptech Alloy as well. Is that in here? I believe we go over some Necrons. Yep, some Necrons here with the Canoptech Alloy in select places so that there's different metallics across the miniatures, so there's some value there, some difference in color value, I mean. And then I'm assuming we probably go over all of this with an Agrax Earthshade. And then a final gallery of how your miniatures should essentially look so far if you've been following the painting guides in the magazine. And then here we have a little skirmish game that we would play, which we would use our Necron Overlord, our Primaris Captain, our 3 easy to build Assault Intercessors from earlier in the collection, and 5 of the 10 Necron Warriors from previous issues. And it looks like 5 Necron Warriors specifically with the Goss Flayers. Just so that maybe their shooting isn't too overpowered while the Assault Intercessors try to cross the board just to get into melee combat. But it looks like this is just a little kill 'em up scenario. Move, shoot, charge, fight. Move, shoot, charge, fight. And then whoever comes on top wins, and then you and your opponent can switch armies or switch your small band of miniatures to see which gameplay you enjoy more, Necrons or Space Marines, just like we've seen in all the previous issues. Moving on to our next issue here. Luckily we've got the binder from previous issues because these still fall apart. And if you're familiar with my Imperium videos, you'll know my gripe with how these fall apart. Not too happy about that. Now moving on to issue 13 here. Issue 13, again, as I said, has our Assault Intercessors. If we go into the issue itself, which again also is falling apart, we find more info about our Assault Intercessors and that they are close combat specialists, their heraldry with the Sergeant's tilt shield on his chest, and different things. And moving forward, we can go ahead and name the squad, name our different members of the squad, name their origins, if they're from Macragge or anywhere else within the Ultramar system, if they are Ultramarines. If you paint them as anything else, of course you can come up with whatever names you'd like. Then this is a nice introduction here to the history of Necrons. So in Search of Immortality, this goes back and explains how 65 million years ago, I don't know how long, the Necrons were the Necrontyr. They were living creatures, and their whole backstory of becoming the Necrons with the fight against the Catan, the Old Ones, the Eldari as they are called now. They used to just be Eldar back in my day. And then fast forward to now, they're all in their Necron tombs underground on specific tomb worlds, and they're slowly awakening to the 41st millennium. Pretty cool backstory for our future space skeletons. And then moving on, we have our how to build section for the Assault Intercessors, and then directly into how to paint these Assault Intercessors. And it just has us pick out the main body, 3 coats of Macragge blue, I guess, with no primer. That would make sense. Using some Lead Belcher for silver details, black to break it up a bit, gold Retributor armor here for the Aquila and some details, Screamer pink for purity seals, so on and so forth. And then how they would look so far, I'm assuming we'd be getting things like a flesh wash or things like that for the missing details in later issues, and maybe some Nuln oil for those plain silver parts on the Marines. And then moving forward, we have our next small scenario. The small scenario is going to be our closest thing to a bit of a skirmish game. Here you're going to see much more data sheets than we normally see in the back of the issues for the games, just because there's not so much miniatures used at once. So here we have our 5 Assault Intercessors, our Primaris Captain, and then we have our Scorpec Destroyers and the Scarab Swarms. And then here we have our board set up here, and it looks like these are some of the shipping containers that you can pick up as scatter terrain. We don't have those as of yet, but I do believe we will have them in a future issue. So that's a way that you can populate your board for some scatter terrain and some variety. And then some information about our plasma pistol there. A nicely painted one with some blue glow, which is nice inspiration there. And then it's things about movement and flight and how the Scarab's arms can just fly over a Marine's head. And then again, we just play through the scenario and kill them all. I believe there's a few objectives that the Scorpec destroyers are trying to get to, and it looks like the Marines either kill them all to stop them from getting the objective, and that's how you play out that entire scenario. And again, just swap armies at the end with your opponent. Now, the last piece that we have before we get to snipping out all the miniatures and taking a closer look is this little fold out that says 1,000 chapters. Now this here has information about different random chapters of Space Marines. Imperial Fists here on the bottom, Black Templars up top. I play Black Templars myself, so I'll be snipping these Assault Intercessors out and fitting them together so we can take a look at what they look like directly off the sprue. But luckily all the arms have blank shoulder pads, so I can either put some water slides on them or just snip them up and use some parts from the Black Templars upgrade sprue and my leftover parts from the army box and such to customize these to have Black Templars iconography on the shoulder pads and some chain on the weapons. And then worst case scenario, I have some small modeling and hobby chain that I can use to simulate that myself. Aside from that, again, back to our little insert here, talk about a little bit about the Imperial Fists, the Black Templars, flip it around, Space Wolves and Dark Angels, how they look, how they differ. They're all Space Marines, they're all power armored, but if we look, Space Wolves are wolfy, Dark Angels have the Deathwing and the Raven Wing and their standard companies. Black Templars have their sword brethren here, chained together with their weapons and their crusading aspect. Imperial Fists are regal with their yellow armor and marching forward with bolters firing. And then we've got White Scars, which are known for their bikes and fast attack. Blood Angels here, which are Sanguinius' Berserkers, the vampires of 40k, but they're good guys though. And then folding out further, we find out more information about different homeworlds, chapter planets, and fleet-based chapters. And then we have a whole galactic map that points out things like near Armageddon, the Black Templars have a Crusade fleet, or over here, Chigoris is the White Scars homeworld. And here dotted all along the map, we find different homeworlds for different chapters and things, which is cool to see. And that looks to be that great rift that ripped open from the Eye of Terror, I guess, and where Cadia once was. And that's what gives us this new modern lore that we have for Warhammer, with the Imperium split into the Imperium Sanctus and the Imperium Nihilus, which I'm assuming Sanctus here is where Terra and Mars are, and the lighter half of the galaxy maybe, or lighter half of the Imperium, where the separated darker half, separated by the Great Rift, is Imperium Nihilus here. And that's it for the paper. And now, again, knocking my light over, we'll go ahead and snip these out, take a quick look at them. We were included this brush set, which has a medium shade brush, a medium layer brush, and I believe it's a medium or large base brush. I don't have any of these, which are useful because they're on the bigger side. A lot of my brushes are small, so using these to base coat large areas of vehicles and things like that, or brush prime miniatures is pretty good. I just realized I was crackling all this plastic over in the mic. Sorry about that. So I'll be using the paint. Unfortunately, I already have Agrax Earth Shade and Screamer Pink, so I mean, I guess more Agrax is good to have. Screamer Pink, I don't know how often I'll use. And then Canoptech Alloy is a nice color to have because I probably would have never purchased this pot myself, but having it included, I'm now more likely to use. And again, this sprue, this half sprue for assault intercessors. If you'd like to pause it, zoom in and take a closer look, you can. But from here, I'm gonna go ahead and snip these out, get them put together, and we'll take a closer look at them. We'll be back in just a moment.
Alright, and we're back with our miniatures snipped out of the sprue, cleaned up a little bit, and just push fit together. And the other included goodies from the other issue with the 3 paints, the Canoptech Alloy, Agrax Earth Shade, and Screamer Pink. The Marines are pretty generic. Luckily, you can swap their arms out easily. I'll probably be customizing these heavily to fit into my Black Templars, as I said previously in the video. There are some connection points on rounded areas, like on the exhaust bulbs on the backpacks, that are a little annoying to deal with when cleaning these up. But otherwise, they're not too bad. They're nicely detailed, albeit quite generic. No markings on the shoulder pads as you would expect, so that you can add your own chapter markings, but other than that, they're just plain Marines. There are some options for the sergeant to have the plasma pistol, or to have the chainsword sheathed and the helmet on. Right now I have him with the unhelmeted head and the plasma pistol with the bionic arm. And the helmet on his side, but you can change the arm to have nothing in it in the right hand, so no pistol, but a holstered chainsword on his hip, a helmet, and a pistol in his left hand, which means that there's a little bit of variation with the arms on these and how you can fit them together, so they are interchangeable somewhat. Some poses might look a little awkward with different arms on them. And for the sergeant as well, he does have a different chest piece that does not have his tilt plate, which is the shield on his shoulder that bears personal heraldry usually, and then, at least for Black Templars, and then for other Primaris Marines and other chapters, it might be squad markings or whatever the case may be for those codex compliant chapters. I don't care about the codex. And then again, our paint is good. If you're looking to bolster your units, and you see these intercessors on the shelves in your local stores, if you're looking for these specific paints and you see this issue on the shelf in your local store, pick them up, as I always say. But these aren't must buys. There's decent value, but you're not losing out on not picking these up. The added value of the brushes here is nice. Whoops, there we go, knocking over miniatures. But the added value of the brushes there is nice in the subscription as well. But these issues are ones that you could easily skip if they're not things that you're specifically looking for. If they are things that you're specifically looking for, then the value is there, and go ahead and feel free to pick them up. But again, these are just generic push fit assault intercessors. I don't actually believe this is the Marines that come in the intercessor box. There wasn't much options for changing their loadouts or power sword or power fist or whatever for the sergeant or anything. So they're a little bare bones, like in that sense. There is small customizability with the sergeant and some arms, but war gear wise, it's take the squad with the plasma pistol or without it. So yeah, these are the miniatures. As I said, they're GW miniatures. They're finely casted, fine detail on them, so they'll look great. But they're Space Marines. Space Marines are a little boring. So we'll get to the next few issues, and those will be a bit more exciting. And then our next shipment should be another quite exciting one. And again, thanks for watching, everyone. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.